Oh, ah.
Welcome, 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 tributes and non-tributes alike. It is I, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome, and welcome to the 4th episode of Versus. Just in case you haven't been to my show before, welcome. It is a pleasure to have you all, and I have recently posted what I have done in regards to past episodes of Versus, which is Harry Potter and The Lord of the Rings. But today we are going to be tackling The Hunger Games, ladies and gentlemen, the Suzanne Collins trilogy turned 4-film quadrilogy. And just in case you haven't watched Versuses before, wow, just know that at this point in time, books lead the films at a score of 2-0. So the films really need to catch up here. But before we begin in discussing all the wonders of the book-to-film comparison that is The Hunger Games, I've got 2 panelists that are going to be fighting in this battle, but I don't think it's going to be anything violent or anything like that. So let's introduce the panel. We are going to start with the defender of the books.
That's me, right? Yeah.
That is you. I should hope you remember that it's you.
Alright, hi guys. I'm Melissa, and my channel is The Bookish Babbler, and I'm defending the books. So, yeah.
Okay, great. And now the defender of the films.
Hello, I'm Jenny from the channel Jenny King, and I will be defending the movies today.
Okay, great. So just in case, once again, here's how we're going to go. We are going to be splitting up all of this. We're going to be going book by film, book by film, book by film. So basically, Hunger Games versus Hunger Games, Catching Fire versus Catching Fire, etc. You know the drill. So to all of you who are watching, because I see you all in the comments, so I'm glad to see that everybody is starting to come on in and enjoy us and see what we have to say. So between the breakdown of each and every book-to-film comparison, we are going to be taking some questions. We're not going to take all the questions because we don't have enough time, because we've got book battles to watch at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know if Kales from Kales Corner will be watching today, but she will be the person to go to as soon as we are done. So we are going to be watching the clock very carefully. So before we begin discussing and comparing, I guess the first place to start is at the beginning, and that was your discovery of the Hunger Games, whether it was books or films or one or the other. I guess we'll start off with you, Melissa. How did you discover this?
I discovered The Hunger Games because of wife time. But my cousin's wife now was obsessed with The Hunger Games, and she kept telling me I need to read these books and watch these movies, and I didn't actually decide to until Catching Fire, the film, came out, and everyone was going on and on about how it was so good. So I decided I should hop on the bandwagon, so I read all the books in a span of 2 days, and then I watched the first movie and went and saw the second movie.
Okay. And Jenny, how about yourself?
So I don't remember exactly how I found them. I want to say that I got the maybe the first one for Christmas from my dad, because I know once I read them, and I read them in 2011, once I read the first one, I read all 3 of them in like a span of 2 weeks. And then got really excited when the first movie was going to come out. And I actually got my husband into reading them, my then boyfriend, and like we have this funny story about it because when he finished the last book, he drove 2 hours to come stay with me because he was so affected by the movie, and it was like this ridiculous sweet thing.
Okay. Well, I'm not the one that's going to be doing most of the talking today. I'm just here to do the intros and ask all the questions. But I'll just give you guys my experience with the Hunger Games. You know, I was on the Harry Potter bandwagon long before the movies even came out, so I was glad to know that I had actually read the books. And the same thing was with Lord of the Rings and also Twilight, something that I didn't get into, although I did force myself to watch the movies just to see how bad they were. But then The Hunger Games comes out thanks to all of these and all of these movies, and I see my now sister-in-law, when I was going to visit my brother, she was reading Catching Fire and Mockingjay, and I said, what are these books that you're reading? And she says, oh, have you heard of The Hunger Games? And I said, you know what, actually I have. They just started talking about the fact that they're going to become movies. And she says, oh, you got to read these books. They're so good. Well, I do enjoy a good read, so I had to try it out for myself. And that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it, because I'm not going to be giving my opinion at this point in time. So let's go into the first battle, and that is the Hunger Games book versus the Hunger Games movie. So the movie has come out long after so many people read the book. I guess the first place that we need to go to is how the book is presented. And that, of course, is in the inner mind of Katniss Everdeen, the main protagonist. So is this a great way to present this book? Because obviously you can't do it in the way that the movie does it, which is not speaking in the third person. So what do you feel was the best way to do it? Was it the book's way to do it better, or was it the film's way to do it better?
So I think that they both had their merits, definitely. What I really liked about the way the movie did it is that you could still kind of do some of those things that we were learning through Katniss's thoughts. You could portray those in the movie without it being just from her perspective, and with it not being just from her perspective, we were able to get a lot more insight on the games especially, and to see like the behind the scenes stuff, which I know we're going to talk about, and which was something that in the books you really couldn't get a feel for, just how like the technical aspects of the game and that kind of stuff, which really interested me.
Yeah, I think the good thing about the book's perspective, though, is the fact that because it was told in Katniss's mind, and you were basically seeing everything she saw and hearing everything she heard, it was a much more of a jarring experience, at least for me. I felt that the first movie was a lot more emotional than, or the first book was a lot more emotional than the first movie for me, because it was just thrown in your face, and every little detail of the gore and the violence that Katniss had to see and endure was what we were feeling, because we were hearing every bit of it.
That's a very interesting way to say it. I didn't actually think about it that way.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other interesting things in regards to the story itself is the fact that this whole battle in the arena is televised, where they actually have people from all the districts literally watching these kids, you know, literally battling to the death. And by the way, I don't want anyone to yell out spoiler alert, because basically if you are here and you're watching Hunger Games talks, you know, like, you obviously shouldn't be here. So if you haven't read the Hunger Games or seen the Hunger Games, go back to whatever rock you were crawled out from, and, you know, just don't yell spoiler alert, because obviously everybody who's watching us has seen this. So getting back to what I was saying is the fact that this is a televised event, and of course one of the things that a lot of people didn't like is the shaky cam. Do you feel that it was something that was necessary, or do you feel that it changed the impact of the story in the film version itself?
Well, I definitely think that it gave back a little of what Melissa was talking about that the book had, because when you have the shaky cam, you get a little bit more of that feeling of the intensity of the arena and of being kind of there and experiencing it a little bit more. So I definitely thought the shaky cam added to the arena scenes and made you really kind of get into it and feel, I guess, anxious. Especially the scene where with the what are they called, when she gets stung and it's all that weird trippy
the
stuff.
The
tracker jacket, yeah.
And it's all these crazy things, special effects, like that makes you really feel disoriented.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I actually like the shaky cam in the first one. It gave a little bit more of the feel of the book, with it being so just disorienting, because, I mean, Katniss was just dropped into this arena. Of course she's going to feel disoriented and scared, which the shaky cam, I think, definitely helps portray that.
Because I know a lot of people that didn't like the shaky cam. I think a couple of people that I know actually got nauseous from watching the movie.
I have heard people say shaky cam makes them nauseous.
Yeah, so yeah, I definitely see where you both are coming from. And now we actually go into one of my favorite parts, and that's discussing the characters. Because when it comes to heroes and heroines that people adore, especially when they're going to be shown on a movie screen, they want to make sure that, you know, meaning the fans, they want to make sure that the movie people get it right. So let's start off with the main three, which is Katniss, Peeta, and Gale. Let's start off with Jennifer Lawrence. Again, I have so much to say about Jennifer Lawrence as an actress, but I really want to know, especially from two fans like yourselves, did they get it right? And then move on, and then please, we can move on to Gale and Peeta, and then we'll move on to other cast members.
I mean, I liked Jennifer Lawrence's casting for this because when she was cast, she wasn't really, she hadn't really exploded like she has now. So she was, she had a few movies and she was kind of popular, but not in the same way that she is now. And so she was still vaguely unknown, which I liked about basically her and Peeta's character were basically kind of unknown, more or less. But I thought that she looked like what I envisioned Katniss to look like, and she played the part really, really well, in my opinion.
I liked the casting choice, so I was after reading the book, because I came into it later, but after reading the books, when I went to watch the first movie, I was a little worried because Katniss darker olive tone skin, and I was a little bit worried because Jennifer Lawrence is extremely pale, so I was a little bit like, oh, are they whitewashing this character? But I think that didn't really matter in the end because she did a really great job, especially in the first two movies. I think are my favorite acting-wise for her.
Okay, now let's talk about the other Hemsworth, the non-Thor Hemsworth, Liam Hemsworth. Your thoughts as him being as Gale, because I honestly, and I'm just going to throw out my idea right now, even though I'm supposed to be biased, I truthfully don't really remember Gale much, but maybe you guys can throw out a better perspective.
You hurt me!
I can do that to people. I have ways. Anyway, Liam Hemsworth, let's do this.
You seem to have a lot of feelings.
You want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
The person who really has the one who's been hurt is the one that needs to get up and take the
Okay. I actually I wasn't too sure yet again because I was Team Gale. Gale was always my favorite. I was like, Peeta, you can go jump off a cliff and go away. Did not like Peeta in the books, so I loved Gale. So I was pretty excited that they got an extremely attractive person to play Gale. Like, that made me happy. I love Gale. But I feel like he wasn't really utilized, and like the character of Gale in the movie got sort of cut short, so we didn't really get to see a lot of Liam Hemsworth being Gale until the later film. So, I mean, for the first movie, I was like, eh. Then the second movie, I was like, eh. But then the last two movies, I was really happy about the choice they made.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of thoughts about Gale in general because I'm like the exact opposite. I was Team Peeta from the get-go, and I just sort of was like, wait, are we supposed to think they like each other? I thought he was like her brother. I was very confused by the whole Team Peeta, Team Gale thing, to be completely honest.
Rubbing off of Twilight.
What?
I said rubbing off of the whole Twilight thing,
Yeah, but I mean, I liked him. I thought that he was pretty close to what I can kind of vaguely remember me picturing Gale as, so, because he didn't make a huge impression on me.
So the one that did make an impression on you, Jenny, let's talk about Peeta and his actor that filled his shoes, Josh Hutcherson, who had actually been in Hollywood for quite a number of years before this.
Yeah. I don't know. I had mixed feelings about him. I remember when I first saw him cast as Peeta, I was like, no. And I guess because he's so short, and like, I remember, and I may be completely off on this, but I remember Peeta having like super curly hair, and like, I don't know. I had a completely different picture of
He
him.
was like crazy muscular. Is how
And
yeah.
I just was like, who is this small, straight-haired, like, I don't know, he just didn't look anything like what I imagined PETA to look like. And I was like, and for me, like, even my image of PETA, it's not that I thought that he was, like, super attractive, because I didn't picture him as super attractive. I kind of pictured him as that, like, awkward kid that just sort of hangs around the outside of the circle. But, like, I don't know, I couldn't get my mind around him. And then, you know, as the movie went on, I kind of accepted it, but I compared it to the casting of Rupert Grint for Ron. It was like the one person that it was like, this is totally wrong and off the wall.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so pretty much mixed feelings, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Melissa, your thoughts?
Well, being a PETA hater, I didn't really care who was PETA, but I actually was glad it was Josh Hutcherson because I was that kid who watched Bridge to Terabithia and was like,
I saw it too. That's
and had a Josh Hutcherson poster like on my wall, like it was Bridge to Terabithia. So he hadn't been in anything for a while after that movie, and then I was like, isn't this that kid from Bridge to Terabithia? So I was actually really excited to see how he had sort of grown as an actor since that movie, because I love that movie. And yeah, I actually liked him a lot more in the movie than in the book, though I still had problems with PETA. I still liked him.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we've got the supporting cast, which I would personally say that there were some real shockers that came out in terms of who they cast as who. So we're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire, and, you know, whoever wants to take it and talk, you know, go for it. So the first person that we're going to talk about is President Snow, played by Donald Sutherland.
He was pretty spot. I mean, I don't remember having an idea of what President Snow looked like in my head, but like his portrayal was so good.
Yeah, he was brilliant. He was way more scary than the book President Snow, I thought.
Yeah, he creeped me the heck out.
He was great.
Yeah. Okay, a very big surprise was Elizabeth Banks as Effie Trinket.
I remember thinking, like, how is this gonna go? I just don't even know how to imagine this because she's so like put together in real life. She's such like a sophisticated kind of sleek person that I was like, what? This is either gonna be really good or really bad.
Yeah, I was like, isn't this chick from that Invincible movie? I don't know if you guys have seen that, the football movie though.
I've seen it.
Yeah, which is like my mom's favorite movie. And so I've seen that movie so many times, and I was like, Invincible, what is she doing as Effie Trinket? But she was, yet again, she was just really, really great as that character.
Well, I don't know where you guys are coming from, but I just remember her as the crazy, sex-crazed lunatic in The 40-Year-Old Virgin, but that's just me. That's where I first found her. Okay, Woody Harrelson as Haymitch.
He was so good. He's probably one of my favorite castings. I just thought, like, I think maybe when I first heard about it, I was like, okay, maybe, we'll see. But then when I saw his portrayal, I was like, this is so good.
Yeah, he was spot on. And the chemistry with him and Elizabeth Banks was really good, which is a thing that's in the books. Like, him and Effie have that really great, like, love-hate relationship. And I thought their on-screen chemistry really did a good job of portraying that. So I liked him, too.
Okay, how about Stanley Tucci as Caesar Flickerman?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I don't remember a whole lot of details about Caesar Flickerman. I just remember being really over the top. So I thought it was really good. I just didn't have like I don't know. I don't have a lot of opinions about that one.
Okay. Melissa, are you there?
Melissa looks frozen.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, goodness. I had a feeling that this was going to happen. Oh, my Lord. Hold on. Let me see if I can get in contact with her. Okay, she's popped out. Hopefully she'll pop in just a second. There she is.
Yeah.
Okay, thank goodness. Okay. Can we see you? Okay, good. You're back?
I don't even know what happened.
Okay, well, I knew that something was going to happen.
Thank goodness it was
people
left the
that
thing.
froze up. Okay, so
Or
now
did I leave?
Okay, so now that the technical difficulties are gone, we were talking about Stanley Tucci as Caesar Flickerman, and we didn't get your thoughts yet.
Oh, I loved him. I thought he was great. I love him in everything he does, so I wasn't even worried. I knew he would
Okay.
just do great.
And last but not least, I think the person that would probably have surprised everybody was Lenny Kravitz as Cinna.
Yeah, when I heard this, I remember going, what? I was like, I didn't even know Lenny Kravitz acted, first of all, and then I was kind of like, okay, that's just weird. And then when I saw him in the movie, I was like, I'm pretty sure that there is nobody more perfect for this role than Lenny Kravitz. Like, he was Cinna to a T.
Mm. He looked just how Cinna is like described in the book. Yeah, he was great. He was spot on.
So then we move on to probably the most important thing, and that, of course, is the Hunger Games itself. Books can be very challenging. It can be very challenging for books to really give you something visually. So we've got the books, and then the Hunger Games are portrayed in the book, and then they finally give us the movie. So what were your thoughts in regards to how the films brought the actual Hunger Games to life? And were there things that you feel that it could have done better, or do you feel the book captured better?
I think for the first one, I think the book did a better job because like, with the mutts at the end, it's actually the dead players that were turned into these sort of mutts, and they have their faces, and they didn't do that at all. The gross, manipulative sort of side of things that the games have because the government is so manipulative. I thought that they did a really great job, the mutts did, of manipulating the people who would have to kill them again for the second time. I think that was lost, as well as just yet again with the first person thing. I think a lot of the minute details were sort of lost. I still really enjoyed the movie, but I think the bookness of the game's better.
Yeah, I definitely think there were parts of the games that were better in the movies and parts that were better in the books. Like you said, Melissa, the mutts, that was the one thing that stood out absolutely to me. Is it's like they tried to make it, because when you see the behind the scenes part and they are like showing like, here's the mutts, we're going to release these in there, and he's like, oh, that's very good, but it's like you don't get that part, like you said, where it's supposed to be like you have to kill him a second time, and the eyes of the mutts were the eyes of the other tributes. And to me in the books that was so horrifying, like absolutely horrifying, and in the movies it just was like they were being attacked by a pack of wild dogs, and so it didn't have the kind of impact. But then there were, like, obviously being able to see behind the scenes of the games and see the kind of twisted manipulation that was happening, and like in the books it's implied that they're doing certain things to push the tributes back together to make them fight, but in the movie you actually see them physically saying, okay, she's getting too far away from the others, you know, start that fire and send her running back towards the other tributes and things like that. And so I thought that it did a really good job of making you understand just how twisted this really was. And obviously the brutality in the movie to me was a lot more, it was just more in your face than it was reading about it, just because, you know, it's one thing to read about kids killing other kids, it's another thing to watch somebody bludgeon somebody with a rock, like.
Yeah, that actually leads into another question, and that is, you know, the way that brutality of children is portrayed in this story. I mean, was it something that, you know, went a little too close to, or possibly even too over the edge? Because one thing that I was certain of in regards to Suzanne Collins, and we'll get into a little bit more of it as we progress through the books and films, is how many boundaries she tried to cross. I mean, there are some moments that, I will not lie, are quite a little nerve-wracking and a little uncomforting to watch as far as the movies go, but in terms of the books and film, do you feel that, she went too far? And if she did, in fact, cross that line, do you feel that she executed it correctly?
I don't think she went too far. I've read and watched lots of things a lot more that are geared towards younger audience. So I didn't think she went too far, but I think a little more realistic than other things. Like there's sci-fi movies where people will like just die constantly, but it feels more realistic when it's just a couple people that you sort of get to know intimately in the story, and you watch them kill one as opposed to like hordes of people being slaughtered at once that you aren't really connected to. So I think that is why it comes across as a little more violent and dark and brutal, is because it's more of a, we're closer to the story just because of the way it's written and the way it's filmed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely, she did a really good job with the, you read this or you watch it and you think, our society really could crumble to this point. And like, I think that's what made it jarring, or make some people feel like, oh my gosh, like this is terrible, because, it could genuinely get there. It wasn't an unrealistic picture of like a terrible future, whereas some dystopian, it's like, yeah, that's never gonna happen. But like you look at the Hunger Games and you're like, that could happen.
Yeah. That's what kind of terrifies me too, I won't lie.
Yeah.
And then we've also got some additional things that are thrown in, which Jenny actually touched upon briefly earlier, and that was the expansion of the Hunger Games to actually show the audience what was going on behind the scenes, which is not featured in the books. Do you feel that this should have been in the books, or do you feel that it just, even without it, the book was just as good as it was? Or does the new additions in the film make it bigger and better?
I don't think the book needed it. I mean, I think the book as it was good and was great and didn't need anything added to it. I think the behind the scenes added to it. For me, the parts where it was like it would show the district watching things, I thought that took you out of the story, especially when they throw in that random riot that did not happen. And I was kind of like, okay, so they're going to show these people rioting around. It was like, I think it was about the same time as Rue's death, and it was like, but we're basically, with that book, you're supposed to care about Katniss's story and about what's going on in the arena, and it felt like there were a couple of times that they did this throughout the movies where they were trying to nod to something that was going to happen later on down the road, but if you hadn't read the books, then you had no idea what was going on there, or why that was important, or what that even had to do with.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was like they're trying to start the storyline too early. And also, I don't think that the pulling out of the narrative would have worked for the book, simply because those other scenes are very much third person, and I don't think they would have worked if she had written from a different character's perspective in first person. And I personally hate it when third and first person perspectives are mixed up together, very disjointed. So I think they definitely added an element, especially with the game makers, to the movies, but I don't think they were necessary for the books.
Okay, let's also talk about a couple of things that were not featured in the films that were in fact featured in the book, or maybe a couple of things that were changed. Katniss's friend.
Yeah, Madge. I think, was that her name? No. I don't know.
Yeah, Madge.
Yeah, the whole thing with the Mockingjay pin, I think, is that what you're talking about?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. So it just, like, the way that I'm supposed to be defending the movies here, but I have feelings about this that I just have to say.
It's okay. It's okay. This has happened before. It can happen again. Go. Have fun. Go.
So the way that they handle the Mockingjay pin in the movie is so ridiculous, because they have her basically buying it at the black market and giving it to Prim when you're supposed to understand that Katniss and her family are so poor they can barely afford to feed themselves. So she would have never had the money to buy this pin to give to her sister just because it was reaping day. And then it's just like the way that it's done in the book, where it's given to her by the mayor's daughter, is like a symbolic thing of support that's just completely removed in the movies.
Yeah, and then and Madge was sort of a very important character. She's referred to multiple times in the books when Katniss is in the games, and it also, I feel like the whole Gale liking Katniss thing makes no sense in the movies, because it's never mentioned by anyone. Like, you wouldn't even know until it's literally thrown in your face that he cares for her. But in the book, Madge is always trying to like hang out with Gale, and he's like, no, I gotta go hang out with Katniss. So I think it took away from that, making that whole relationship make a lot less sense between Gale and Katniss, as well as the whole Mockingjay pin thing. I don't know. I liked Madge, and then she was gone, and it was sad.
Okay, what about the history of the Avoxes, who are practically non-existent throughout the entire film?
This is kind of what I was alluding to with them kind of trying to throw in things that you're supposed to understand, but if you haven't read the books, you don't understand. Because in the first movie, they reference the whole Avox thing. They just don't call it by name because they're sitting, because when she and Gale are out in the forest, she says something, when they're talking about running away, she says, or they'll catch us and cut our tongues out. But it's so briefly mentioned that if you don't understand what that means, the way that it's described in the books, then it doesn't make sense. And so then it's like when we're introduced to it later on, it kind of comes out of nowhere. And so I think that they definitely could have done a better job explaining that and kind of bringing that part of the world into the story.
Yeah, it's a pretty big plot point, and a lot of things happen with the Avoxes, and they're one of the reasons Katniss decides to help the rebellion. And I think they yet again showcase just how messed up this government is. And I think that by taking that away, you really made it seem a lot less of an evil institution than it actually is.
Mm-hmm. And this is something I don't even remember. The whole thing with Peeta's leg? When did this happen?
Don't get me started on Peeta's leg.
I don't remember
He loses his leg. He does. He loses it, and he gets like a metal one. And that, so you know how in like the second movie and the later movies, he's always so much farther behind everyone else, and he's always falling over. You know, like, why are you so useless? It's because he has this metal leg, and he can't run with it barely because he has this crappy metal leg. He doesn't want a new, like, synthetically grown one because he give it to him become another part of the game that they're playing, and so he keeps this metal leg, and it ruins basically everything. And that's the whole reason he gets caught, is because he's always lagging behind because he has this metal leg, and it wasn't even in the movie.
Wow.
They definitely, I actually am like you, didn't remember that at all until Melissa brought it up, and then I looked it up because I was like, I don't remember anything about that. And yeah, it's like they take the incident where he was supposed to have been injured and like ends up having to have his leg amputated, and it's literally like a scratch. And like the whole thing about her having to go get the medicine is because he has blood poisoning because he's gonna have to have his leg amputated, and like it's totally left out, basically the severity of that, and part of that I think lends itself to they felt like they couldn't portray that in the movie. And I mean, with the whole controversy around Me Before You, it does highlight again the way that Hollywood does not really highlight disabled actors. And like, yes, it would have been hard to have an able-bodied person portray a disabled actor after like he's able-bodied in one movie and they'd have to have an amputated leg in another movie. So I understand why they made the decision. Do I think it was the right one? Probably not.
Yeah, I think Josh Hutcherson could have done it. I mean, it doesn't change that much. It just makes it move a little slower and a little more clumsily than everyone else, which I so. I don't know.
Yeah.
And in regards to speaking to that riot that broke out in the film, that was due to the death of Rue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the most crucial parts of the book. So, again, which way was it done correctly? Was it the film that did it better, or was it the books that did it better? Because, again, I can't give my thoughts because I'm not the one that's giving opinions here. I'm not taking sides. I'm going in both directions here, so I need you guys to let me know this.
Yeah, we lose part of the whole inner dialogue where Katniss is thinking to herself, like, they're probably not even going to show this in the districts. Like, they're not going to show people one tribute caring about the death of another tribute because it would go against what the games are about or whatever. And so we missed that part in the movie. I thought, like, the way that they portrayed her actually laying the flowers, I thought that was really beautifully done and very affecting. But when they switched to the riots, it was like you're doing the exact opposite of what she was thinking in the books. Like, in the book, she's thinking they're not going to show us to the districts. In the movies, they're showing that they obviously did, and the district is rioting over it. So I thought that was a kind of confusing thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that they sort of, and how they put the riot in the scene, it sort of was very abrupt. It was like, you're really sad, Rue died, and you can sort of see Katniss starting to evolve into this bigger character at that point to become later, sort of the beginning of her becoming flash to the riot, and you're like, what's going on? What is this? Yeah. So I agree with you on that one, definitely.
Okay, well, guess what, everybody? We've officially wrapped up the battle, and oh my God, the movie got crushed by a total score of 9-3. The first Hunger Games book triumphs over the first Hunger Games film. It seems to me that as good as the first movie is, because I actually do like it, I'm quite deceived. I'm really surprised by this. I guess it's just because I read the book such a long time before the film, I completely forgot how great the book was. So I'm very surprised. So that's where we are right now, 1-0 in favor of the books. So that's going to take us to our first break. It's 6:37 p.m. So before we get going into Catching Fire, we're going to answer 2 of the 3 questions that were asked. There is one that I really do like, but I want to save it for a little bit later in the program. So the first question that I find very funny was that was asked by Monica the Book Lover, I believe. And the question is, if they put you in the Hunger Games books, would you have survived the challenge?
Girl, I would be dead.
I would have been so dead.
No chance. Zero. I probably would have been
went,
dead before we even got to the cornucopia. Like, I would have. If I wasn't, I would have starved to death.
Yeah, I would have went hidden like a bush, not even gotten anything from the cornucopia because I've been so terrified.
Yeah.
I would have hidden in a bush and probably starved to death, or someone would have found me and killed me. So.
Yeah, I'm also clumsy and oblivious, so somebody could sneak up and just like kick me in the knee, and I'd fall down and they'd just kill me. Like I would never survive.
Well, just because of the fact that I get to throw my fandom in here, I said this when I did the Hunger Games tag about a year ago. I said if I was chosen, I would just grab a gun and shoot myself in the head. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm done.
I mean, for real, I would look at the tributes that didn't come out of it. I would not want to survive because then you're just messed up for life. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
And the next question, which I think is really good, it was given us by Hannah over at Bookwormin, and the question is, what was the most powerful moment in the books franchise and movie franchise?
I think the most powerful moment in the book for me was when she sees the Avox girl in the in like the Capitol. She ends up serving her, the one that was trying to escape, the girl who's trying to escape, and she helps them escape the district, and then she sees her lady box, and I was just like, evil to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I remember that being really powerful. Though I do also remember in the first book, like, the reaping made me sob like a baby. Like, the whole thing with her sister, and yeah, that for me was really powerful in the books too.
And then for the movies, I think Finnick's death in the last movie was done really well, like really well done. And I was just a mess. Oh my goodness, because Finnick's my favorite character in the Hunger Games books. So I was knowing it was coming, but I think that's one scene that they did a lot um, more justice to his death in the movie as opposed to the book.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not in the first movie. It's in the last one. But yeah, Finnick's death was just that was the most powerful in all of the movies because I was, like you said, anticipating it to the point that, like, the scenes leading up to it were too freaking long because I was like, when is it gonna happen? When are they gonna rip my heart out? Because that was it. I mean, they just did an incredible job and it was so powerful, and yeah, they did such a good job with that ripping my heart out thing.
And a very interesting thing that was posted in the comments, Jesse over at Biblio Jesse said that in Catching Fire there is a brief talk about the District 8 riot.
Oh.
Which I don't remember either. But anyway, that leads into the next battle, and that is the Catching Fire battle. So I know that a lot of people love this book, and a lot of people love this movie too. So I'm really excited to see how this battle is going to go down. So, do you feel, first of all, am I wrong? Is this book the best in the series? And if it is, in fact, the best in the series, does the movie go along with it hand in hand? Or do you feel it's a movie that's better?
No, I think this was the best book and the best movie.
Yeah, me too. Me too, definitely. Okay. First off, we get Finnick in this book and movie.
Yeah, and we'll get to him in just a minute. No problem. You can gush about Finnick all you want.
Can I be Team Finnick all the way? Screw the other two.
So we get a brand new director, and the shaky cam is gone. Now, this is a more interesting question to me, considering the fact that you both gave a very interesting thought on the shaky cam. But now that it's gone, does it change the overall feel of the story, especially from a visual standpoint?
Honestly, I didn't miss it. Like, it was one of those things that, like, when it was there, I really liked the way it was done. But when it wasn't there, I didn't notice it wasn't there.
Yeah, same thing for me, and I also think that the shaky cam wouldn't have worked as well for the second one simply because it's such a wider scope of a story, the second one is. And the games are a lot less about Katniss being traumatized and just disgusted with what's going on around her, and it's a lot more about her trying to figure out how to get out of the situation, because by this point she's a very hardened and jaded individual as opposed to the first book. So I think that it wouldn't have worked as well because it would have just felt like she was experiencing the same emotions as in the first movie, which she obviously isn't.
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay, and so now we come to the fun part. Now we come to all the new cast members that came. So obviously I know who you want to talk about, so I might as well save the best for last.
Oh.
The first character that I would like to talk about then, since I was planning on saving him for last, we might as well give him the first, and that is the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, who unfortunately left us before the story in films actually came to an end. He plays Plutarch Heavensbee, and your thoughts on this now only in memories actor. What were your thoughts on how he portrayed this character, especially with how he was in the book?
He's one of my favorite actors, so I pretty much felt like he could do no wrong. I don't remember having a clear picture of Plutarch at all, So I was happy with his casting, and I thought he did a really good job kind of portraying that, where you kind of felt like he was evil at first, but he really wasn't.
Okay.
Agree with that. I think he did a really great job, and I think he was even a little more sneaky than in the book. I think he played the character a little more cunning, which I really appreciated, being a Slytherin. And
You
I
don't
think
come off
that
as a Slytherin, Melissa. I gotta tell you, you just don't.
I am, though. Every test I've taken, all across the board,
Goodness.
Slytherin.
I gotta figure it out. I gotta figure out how that happened. I don't see it. I just don't. I know Slytherins, okay? I know some seriously devious people. Like, I really do.
I'm one of the good Slytherins. I don't know. But anyways, I
Anyway.
think he just did a really, really good job playing the character. Very smart. He's a very smart character, and I think he played that character really, really well.
Okay. And here was an interesting one. Jeffrey Wright. A lot of people don't know who he is, but when you see his face, because he's been in a lot of projects. He's been in everything from Boardwalk Empire to even voicing various cartoon characters, and he played Beatty. And one of the things that was interesting to me was the fact that he was not the original casting. The original person that was brought to play this character was Tony Shalhoub from the famed show Monk. So knowing who could have been Beatty and who ended up playing Beatty, was it a good choice? Or do you feel, knowing who Tony Shalhoub is, if you do in fact, I'm pretty sure that the both of you do, was this okay, or should we have gone in the other direction?
I mean, I liked Beatty. I think he did a good job playing the character and kind of, I don't know, I liked the character played by him.
Yeah, I think he did a good job. I think that he played it a little more serious than I think it would have been played otherwise, which I actually really enjoyed because, well, Beatty does get a lot of actually really funny lines in the book because I recently reread the series and I was like, he's actually really, really sarcastic and I loved it. I think that he did a really great job of portraying the character who just doesn't give two craps and does whatever he wants, but in a very subtle way, and you think he's doing what you want him to do, but he really isn't at all.
Okay. One of my personal favorites, Jenna Malone as Joanna.
She's such a badass.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
So when I saw the movie, I died laughing. Seen her in before that was Pride and Prejudice, where she plays Lydia, like the one with Keira Knightley. So I died laughing when I saw her, and I just loved it. I love her, and I love her in that film.
I remember when they first cast it, my friend Jessica, who's like super into films, and she loves Jenna Malone, and she freaked out. She was like, "This is the best casting of all of the Hunger Games casting." She was like, "She's so perfect for Joanna," because Joanna was her favorite character, and so she thought that it was really good casting. I think that enthusiasm rubbed off on me.
Yeah, I mean now, and it's and I know that I just saw one of my friends, Brian, show up in the chat. I'm sure I'm going to give him a shout out. I'm really excited to see the character that she portrays in the Batman v Superman director's cut. So very excited to see what role she's going to be in because she was on the cast. They took her out, so I was really excited to finally see her seen again. So that's going to be a good one. So shout out to you, my good man. So now
Also.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, while we're talking about Joanna, I just want to appreciate how perfectly she did the whole elevator scene. I die every time. Her facial expressions are flawless in that scene.
Yes.
She is so Joanna, and I love it.
Yes. That's a scene that I loved watching to death. I think it was just the reactions of people's faces, just like just looking at her, you know.
People's all like, "What?" And Candace is just like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence's face in that entire scene is so funny.
It literally was like it had like a Big Lebowski moment for me, you know?
So good.
Okay, ladies. Now, and all of you ladies that are watching, let's keep our tongues in our mouths. Let's talk about Sam Claflin. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I don't know.
I don't know.
As Finnick. Your thoughts? Go. You have the floor.
Oh man, I will say I did have one criticism. In the books, Finnick has long hair, and
It's like
so because when I pictured him as like a, I don't know, like a mermaid Triton kind of look, but
surfer boy is what I pictured him as.
yeah, but the actor that portrays him, it's just like he brought Finnick to a whole new level. Like I liked Finnick in the book, and I really liked him in the book, but I loved him in the movies.
Mm-hmm. He was so good. And the one thing that I was watching interviews of the cast, and they interviewed him and asked him where he got his inspiration, and he said basically he just played Finnick as a male Marilyn Monroe. And after hearing that, I rewatched the Catching Fire movie, and I could see it, and it makes so much sense because if you look, Finnick's similar to Marilyn Monroe's life story. I don't know how much you know about her, but it's very similar sort of circumstances they were put into, and they have very similar feels as a character and as a person. And I can't help but wonder if maybe Suzanne Collins took a little inspiration for Finnick from her as well. I don't know, but I just thought that was really cool, and I definitely could see it, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the interesting things that I did know, especially remembering the books, is the fact that there are some smaller plot points that do in fact get switched around. I mean, I think one of the ones that I mentioned when we had originally put together this program was the fact that there's a scene where Gale gets whipped in the square. There's also apparently a meeting between Katniss and President Snow that happens a little bit later in the book, if I'm not mistaken. So sometimes people can get a little bit antsy when things get switched around, case in point, Prisoner of Azkaban. So was these minor changes something that truly affected the story, or did it give the story a better sense of pace and direction?
I mean, I don't know. I honestly, I know that certain things, I think it's Gale getting whipped in a square, that I know that didn't happen when it happens in the movie, but, to me, I didn't think it made a big difference when those things happened. I mean, it still played out in a way that made sense.
Just as long as they happen. Yeah, because they are major plot points, but they aren't so major that putting them in the wrong spot is going to throw off the entire.
Although there was one, I guess it was sort of a minor plot point that I remembered when I was rewatching them, was that when the peacekeepers come in and they put basically 12 in lockdown, Katniss and Gale are outside of the actual district hunting, and they don't do that whole thing where she goes over the fence and she falls and almost breaks her ankle, and then she comes in and has to basically hide that. And so they didn't bring that in. They did it sort of in a different way where she comes in and they're like, "Oh, did you have a nice walk?" And she's like, "I was out," and they're like, "We have guests." And so they sort of brought it in, but I remember thinking it was important that she was outside of the boundaries, because that was, again, Katniss kind of being like, rules don't apply to me.
Yeah. I think that how they did it in the movie sort of also took away yet again with the harshness, because she was hiding the fact that she was injured, so then she wouldn't get in trouble, because it doesn't matter if she hurt herself or not, she probably would have been whipped for being outside.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, of course, we get the next Hunger Games tournament, which is the Quarter Quell, and this is a very interesting arena that they have to deal with. And there's a lot of things that happen in that arena, especially with how the book describes it. So what about the film? Was the book better than the film, or was the film better than the book in terms of how this brand new Hunger Games was all set up?
Go ahead.
Oh boy, here we go.
The arena is so different from how I pictured it in my mind. I don't know why it was so different, but it was. But I think that I actually preferred all of the sort of wave things that happened in the book, with the exception of one, with when they put the birds that scream, like people's names, whatever those birds were. I don't remember what they're called, but
It was something Jay. It's not Mockingjay. It's a Jabberjay. Yes, Jabberjay.
I feel well done because we actually got to hear their voices, and I think that was the way better than in the book. In the book, it was a little hard. I mean, you could still picture it, but it was a lot more effective with the actual voices of the characters who were screaming. So that's the only one that I liked more than the book, and the other ones I preferred in the book. I thought they were just a lot more intense in the book.
The arena was just magnificent, like book and movie, incredible, and it was what I pictured in my head. I remember thinking when I first saw the arena in the second movie, thinking, oh, well, that's not exactly how I pictured it, but it just worked so well in the movie, and I thought they did such a good job with, like, the clock aspect without making it, like, too literal. And it just, and the waves were, I don't know, I just thought they were, I don't know, I don't really remember exactly each wave in the book, but like when I was rewatching it and I was thinking about the waves, I was like, this is so intense and crazy, and just the scene where they're running from the poison gas was so intense, and I just thought that they did a really good job portraying the different wedges in the movie.
Now, the next couple of questions are going to be sort of hand in hand, the next two, and then we're going to do the final question. With the story advancing in plot, we also have the characters, the reoccurring characters, you know, being a more deeper, more integral part of the story. So now that we know who is portraying these big heroes from the book, we're obviously talking about the big three. The chemistry between the actors portraying these characters, because I know the book did a very good job in terms of how these characters felt towards one another and worked with one another. But, you know, was the movie something that did it justice, or was the book something that just did it so much better? Especially with things that have been changed.
Well, I said, when I first read the books, I had no real, I just didn't have a concept of the Peeta versus Gale thing, and so I guess I noticed it more in the movies, and I don't know, some of it felt like I felt the relationship with Gale and Katniss, like the whole him liking her thing, it kind of, it didn't have the impact. So I'm trying to think of how to phrase it. So the scene where after he gets whipped, like that whole thing, I remember both in the book and in the movie thinking it was a little weird, because again, I still was like, but he's like her brother. I just didn't, I don't know. I'm probably the worst person.
What are you doing?
I know, but like, what books was I reading? I know. I don't know why, but for some reason, I just could not wrap my head around that relationship.
The one thing I like a lot more in the book is actually the Gale and Peeta dynamic, because in the movie it's very competition and you feel like they really hate each other, but in the books they're just sort of really chill about it. They're like, we both like Katniss, she'll pick who she wants to pick, and it's funny because you can actually, I feel like in the book they also get a lot quicker, like, girl, make your decision, and they both sort of just stop trying because they're like, we don't care anymore, you can make your decision when you want, we're just not going to mess with it. And they are friends in the books, at least I thought, especially in the last book. I thought the Gale and Peeta dynamic was really interesting because they were very much like brothers in arms at that point, and I do appreciate that a lot about the book.
Yeah, okay, I guess I do remember that part, like them kind of being like, make your choice, make your choice. I guess I just thought, is there really a choice here? But
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, I didn't even intend on asking this question. I mean, do you feel that, you know, the fact that they were sort of buddy-buddy, do you feel that that's dull and boring?
No, I think that's great. I think I hate it so much when the two guys or the two girls are like hate each other so much. Like, can't you just be civilized human beings about this? I mean, it drives me nuts. So I really liked that they didn't let it affect their relationship because they totally, with or without Candace, I think they would have got along great and probably been friends if they had met. So I appreciate that Suzanne Collins wrote it in a way that Katniss wasn't the be-all, end-all of their interactions and their relationship.
Right, and I think it's more realistic for them to both be like, because it was obvious that they both had her best interests at heart. Like, they both wanted to do what they could to help her and to help her family and to keep her alive. And so it was like, it's more realistic for them to work together regardless of who she chooses, because
they both care about her.
Because they both genuinely care about her.
Right. Okay, so then that leads into the whole thing with Katniss and her family. Again, portrayed correctly, not portrayed correctly? Or do you think there should have been more?
I mean, I don't feel like she had. I mean, there wasn't a lot of interaction with her family in the movies except for Prim. And I mean, I don't remember there being. I mean, I remember her mother being kind of despondent, basically. But like between Katniss and her mom, there wasn't a whole lot of interaction. What is happening? Sorry.
It's okay.
When my phone rings, it rings on my computer too. Stupid Apple products.
Oh, God. We'll do the Apple bashing another time. That'll be a great... Okay, coming soon, PC versus Mac on an episode of Versus. We can have fun there. Anyway, let's move on. We're still on a time budget here.
So yeah, I think that the relationship between Katniss and her mom is a lot less antagonistic in the movie, which I say from overly protective of Prim and why she feels so trapped in the District 9 because or District 12, why did I say District 9? Whatever. But I think that sort of took away from why Katniss is such a jaded and independent person because her mother wasn't there, and I feel like her mother feels a lot more present in her life in the movies, and it's a lot less of an angry relationship, which I actually preferred in the book because it made more sense with the story and with Katniss's character.
Okay, and the final question that I have for this battle is, at the very end, we all know what happens. You know, we see the unveiling of the District 13. We see who is actually working behind the scenes against the government. And more importantly, we know for a solid fact that Peeta is captured. But we don't remember the fact that there are a couple of other people that are involved in this whole capture. And your thoughts on that, because I am quite certain the book elaborated on that a little bit more.
Well, they mentioned that Joanna was also taken. Because at the end of Catching Fire does end pretty abruptly. Like, it's basically she's screaming and crying because she finds out that basically Haymitch didn't do what she asked him to do. And so she's focused on Peeta, which I feel like in the book she's really focused on Peeta too. But like it's only mentioned kind of briefly, like we didn't get Peeta, he got captured by the Capitol, and they got Joanna too. And it's just kind of left at that.
Yeah, I feel like it was. I think the movie ended that a little too quickly. They sort of glossed over it, and for the part of it, it just felt like, wait, so everyone's been involved with this, and Peeta's gone now, and where's Joanna? Like, that's what I felt like at the end of it. So I think the book did do a better job of explaining what was going on and showing, I mean, Jennifer Lawrence did a great job showing, like, how distraught Katniss was. I feel like Katniss, with the books, yet again, because it's first person, we really get to see her mind working, and she's like, Peeta's gone, and she's working through it, but she's also, you can see her sort of turning into the Mockingjay to really start helping them just because of PETA.
Well, the way the movie ends, like, I think that they did a good job sort of portraying that aspect of the fact that it's like the conflicting emotions, and then her kind of like solidifying into I've got to do something, because it's like the last thing that you see is basically like a shot above her laying down, and like she's got her eyes are kind of looking around, and you can tell she's like really thinking, and then she just like gets this kind of hardened look on her face, and she's staring straight forward, and it's like, how am I going to fix this, basically? And so I thought they did a really good job with the movies and basically foreshadowing her transformation into the Mockingjay and creating that suspense for the next movie.
Yeah, Catching Fire is definitely the best movie.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Melissa, because the battle is over, and we do, in fact, have a battle as far as going into the final round, because the movie beats the book of a score of 5-3. So, we now officially have the movies with 1 win and the books with 1 win. So, before we get into that, and I'm glad to see that the comments are really going, everyone's having a good time. It looks like we're having a great conversation that's showing up here. I'm glad that everybody who is here is participating. But it is 7:06 and book battles is right around the corner, so we're going to answer 2 more questions as quickly as we can, and then we're going to move on to the final match, which is going to be very interesting. So, the first question that I want to give is from Biblio Jesse, and I think we already answered the question, Jesse, and that is the best book to film adaptation. I think we all answered it, even though I didn't say anything. I think it's Catching Fire.
Yep.
Although I will say that a lot of people do say that Mockingjay Part 2 is very underrated, and I do agree to a certain extent.
Yeah, that one's a good one, too.
And we'll talk about that later on. But here's a question that I absolutely adored, and it looks, and I wish that I remembered who actually said it. So I'm sorry if I believe it was the bookworm. If I am correct, please let me know. If you're still here in the chats, let me know if I did get it right. I believe. And the question is, what Hogwarts house would the characters be in? So obviously we're going to go with Gale, PETA, and Katniss. So
PETA is a Hufflepuff.
So Hufflepuff, it hurts. He's so Hufflepuff.
Like, even I can admit that one. Like, straight up Hufflepuff.
Yep, so Hufflepuff.
Okay, so where do we put Gale?
I feel like Gale's a Gryffindor because he does a lot of stupid stuff. And Gryffindors tend to do stupid stuff.
Okay, so I think Katniss is probably the most challenging because, I don't know, I mean, do you think... let me ask the Slytherin in the room. Does Katniss have Slytherin qualities?
I want to put her in Slytherin. I feel like she's very Slytherin.
What did you say,
Because
Jenny?
she definitely does everything.
Oh no, Melissa.
No, she's there. You crapped out a little bit. What were you saying? I know she's there, but
who are we talking to? Me?
We were we did not get the last bit of what you said.
She just does everything for her own motive, and
That's
she
what
very
I was
much
thinking.
is self-centered, which is what Slytherins are. So I would definitely put her in Slytherin.
See, I think she suffers from the same thing as Harry Potter, which was she could have ended up in either one, but if she could choose, she would have chosen Gryffindor.
Okay, well, again, it was Hannah from the Bookworm who actually asked that question. Do you agree, Hannah? Do you feel that... Okay, she just answered. She believes that Katniss is a Gryffindor. She wants to be brave and not have the power like Slytherin. So
because her decisions in the last movie prove she doesn't want the power.
Okay, so let's that's interesting. What can I say? Well, let's all be realistic here. In the end, it's truly the Hufflepuffs that got no love here. Okay, Okay, so so it's 7:09. We just have a little bit more time. Hopefully, we'll be done when we do, so we can all go to book battles. By the way, everybody, thank you very much for watching. We're having so much fun. But now it's going to be a very interesting final battle because it's 2 against 1. It is 1 book versus 2 movies. And that, of course, is Mockingjay versus Mockingjay Parts 1 and 2. Now, before we go into the battle and comparing, be perfectly honest, both of you. What are your true thoughts on the book?
So I actually, when I went back and looked, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and it wasn't that I didn't like the book. It was that when you read it directly after a book like Catching Fire, which is so good, you can't help but compare it, and it is an entirely different, it's just so different from the first 2 that it suffers from that comparison. And I mean, I still thought it was riveting. I still thought that you know, our characters developed in a, you know, a definable way, and it still made me cry in the end. So as far as the book, it was still a good book. It was the weakest of all 3 of them, though.
Yeah, I think for me, I think that she tried to cram too much into 1 book. I think it should have been split into 2 longer books, or she could have tried to make it a lot less of a complex storyline for the ending. With the book is that it tried to do too much, too fast, and she tried to push too many boundaries with it and tried to be too different because, you know, she killed off multiple characters without a real motive, it felt like, and it just sort of felt like she crumbled the character of Katniss and what she was becoming. And I think she also, of course, I was bitter that Gale was treated like crap in that book, but I think that with how Katniss was at the end of that book, Katniss shouldn't have had a happy ending. I think she should have, if Suzanne Collins was willing to push her character that far and do so many dark things, she should have just ended the book in a dark place, and she didn't, which is overall why I didn't enjoy it as much as the other 2.
Yeah, I would like that epilogue to just be trashed. Like,
Yeah.
Katniss would have, A, never married anyone, and B, certainly would not have had kids.
Her poor kids. They're gonna be so messed up.
So in regards to the fact that we're talking about the splitting of the movies, I'm really surprised that a concept of a book being split into 2 was what it was. I mean, you could have maybe just had 1 book and turned it from part 1 to part 2 in there, but now that we actually know that the movie was, in fact, 2 parts of 1 book as opposed to 1 whole movie, do you feel that the first movie, because let's face it, they went on the Harry Potter bandwagon. Deathly Hallows was split into 2 movies. Breaking Dawn, goddamn, was split into 2 movies. Oh my God. You don't even want my thoughts on Breaking Dawn Part 1. You don't. You forget that. But Mockingjay Part 1, do you feel that it ended up being a filler because of the fact that it is sort of something that could have been told in 1 whole movie?
Well, I actually thought, I mean, it made for a slow first movie, that's for sure. It didn't have a lot of action, but I thought that it gave the politics and the kind of emotional part of the book an opportunity to build in a way that having 1 movie wouldn't have been able to do, because like Melissa was saying, it all felt kind of rushed in the book, and because they were able to give it more time, it felt like you really got to understand what was going on politically and sort of what emotional state Katniss was in.
Yeah, I actually don't really.
Uh-oh. Melissa, we're kind of breaking up here. Oh, God. Melissa, we can't hear anything you're saying. Oh, boy. Fine. I'm trying to contact her. Stand by, everybody. We're experiencing small technical difficulties. She may have to dump herself out of the channel again. Yeah, she did. Okay. Okay, and she's back. Good. Okay. Melissa, we didn't catch anything that you said.
Oh my gosh, am I back?
Yep.
Yeah, you're back. You are back.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Well, basically, what I was saying is I don't really I think that Jennifer Lawrence, that's her worst acting out of all the movies. I felt like she overacted it, personally. That I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who thinks that. But I felt like she made Katniss seem a lot more emotional than Katniss is, because which I get, because in the book it's all very inner turmoil. Like Katniss has this very stony facade throughout the book, but inwardly she's an absolute wreck, and I get that they're trying to portray that, but coming from a book to movie like standpoint, I felt like it didn't feel like Katniss Everdeen. And I also really hated how that movie ended. I wish they had ended it with Peeta strangling her and her blacking out. I think that would have been such a better ending for the first movie.
Okay, we'll definitely touch on that.
Because I think that would have been just so good just to end it there, because then it just goes for like 5 more minutes of her just like being like half dead in a bed. And I think it would have just been so like, whoa, what the heck just happened? Is she dead? Is she not? Especially for people who haven't read the books, that'd just be such a crazy just way to end the book, and such a dark place to end the movie, and I think it would have just been insane and brilliant, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, I was actually warned. I was warned by multiple people. You're gonna think it's about the movie has just ended, but it hasn't. And so when it got to that point, I was already forewarned that it wasn't gonna end there. But I was like, why? What director decided to not end it here? Like that was just insane to me.
Okay. Viewer discretion is advised. Let's talk about that a little bit more in detail, especially with Suzanne Collins herself being the author of these. We talked a little bit about this earlier, but do you feel that the decisions that were made in regards to making this book to film adaptation, do you feel that the directions that they took were something that helped this franchise or something that hurt the franchise? Because obviously what I'm hearing is you both are not satisfied with how it ended, meaning the films. You're saying that some of the acting is not really portrayed the way that it should be. So do you feel that what the director did for this final installment of these 2 films was something that helped or hurt?
I think the first one was not that great at all, but I definitely think the part 2 was a lot better. And I think that the way they handled the ending, but yet again, I really hated how they handled the epilogue in that. With Katniss telling her baby this story about the Hunger Games, I'm like, what are you doing, woman? This is a small baby. You don't tell it about the Hunger Games. So I think that some things were really well done, such as a lot, like the action scenes I felt were a lot more drawn out, and like with the death of Finnick, I thought it was given a lot more meaning in the movie versus the book. But I think that also some of the choices they made acting-wise, as well as just small things they tweaked, such as how the epilogue happens, was really weird.
Yeah, there were definitely some weird things, like weird choices, and I just could not get over that they didn't just end it there, because it was like, and then we go on for 5 minutes with Katniss just doing boring things. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, it was just sort of, there were some choices that could have made it a little bit more suspenseful, and that could have focused on other things than what they did, because I thought that when they focusing on the political intrigue, like they were putting people in positions that they weren't necessarily put in the book, like especially Gale. They made him way more involved in decision making than he was in the books.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Okay, I'm telling you this. This doesn't happen often, but I'm really torn as to who's winning this question. So I'm just going to go and give you guys a lightning round here. If you could choose between one or the other, would you go for the book first or would you go for the movie first?
As in, like, do you think you should watch the movie before reading the book? Is that
No,
what you're
I'm just
asking?
saying. No, what I'm saying
Oh,
is,
just in general.
like, like you just like, do I want to read the book again or do I want to go straight to the movies and watch the movies instead?
Oh, well, I would probably go to the movie simply because I'm lazy and I don't feel like reading a whole book. But yeah.
Well, you have officially made every single booktuber on YouTube watching's heart sink to the ground right now.
I love reading, but I'm not going to reread a book that wasn't my favorite. So
Yeah. Like, I would much rather watch the movies than reread that book because while I liked it, it was not my favorite, and I thought that the movies did as good a job portraying the book as the book did.
For the first two books, I would definitely reread the first two books.
Oh, yeah.
Rather than watch the movie. But for the last one.
So then we got some new characters that have been entered into the story, and of course new actors have been chosen to play them. Let's go with a little bit of a fanboy/fangirl thing. Was everyone happy to see Fulton Reed from the Mighty Ducks in this movie? It was Eldon Henson playing Pollux the Avox, who assisted Katniss with the camera work.
I'm the worst with, like, actors, so half of the time I'm like, I don't even know who that guy is. I've seen him somewhere else, but I don't know. So I actually didn't recognize him at all.
Mine wasn't the Mighty Ducks so much as I was like, oh my gosh, it's Foggy from Daredevil.
There you go. He's in Daredevil now. This one was sort of like his launching pad to a certain extent, you know? I thought it was really cool to see one of the, because like, here I'm just gonna jump in for this one. When you see a guy who played a kid in a movie from way back in your past that you haven't seen in a long while, like it's just nice to see them working again, especially how child actors go,
Yeah.
That's how I was with Josh Hutcherson in the first movie.
Yeah.
See, there highlights the fact that I don't know actors very well because I didn't realize that Josh Hutcherson was in a bunch of stuff before.
Yeah, well, something. Even if you didn't, it wouldn't be too terrible because not that many people saw those movies. Believe me, not that many people have many great things to say about Journey to the Center of the Earth. Okay, I'm just gonna put it out right now.
Those movies are terrible.
Anyway, then we got a cast member of Game of Thrones here, and that's Natalie Dormer playing Cressida.
Yeah, she was pretty great.
Yeah, I liked her, though I've never seen Game of Thrones. I want to read the books first, and I just don't have time to commit to that right now. So I actually haven't watched Game of Thrones. So I knew she was in it, so I was excited to see someone from another fandom, even if I'm not a part of it, crossing over. So I really liked her. So my main fangirl moment was, I don't remember becoming the leader of the army or whatever. It's played by Patina Miller, who is a big Broadway star, and me being a Broadway nerd was like, Patina Miller, yes.
There you go. What is she in, by the way? I don't really know.
Who is she in the Hunger Games?
No. What has she done in terms of Broadway? I'm not.
Oh,
I know.
She won a Tony for Pippin recently.
Oh, very nice. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, and of course, I think the person that really stands out is Julianne Moore playing President Coin.
Yeah, she was a truly scary President Coin.
Yeah, I mean, she's a great actor. I mean, that year she came out with an Oscar for Still Alice, which is a brilliant film if you haven't seen it. It's a real tearjerker, but oh my God, so she's phenomenal. No, I thought it was cool to see her there.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the strongest point for the films, the fact that they actually get the actors to fill the shoes of these characters beautifully. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I think I liked her in it, though my one thing is I felt like President Coin wasn't as fleshed out as she was in the book, which is strange because she wasn't that big of a character in the book, but I felt like they took away some of her lines to make room for more President Snow, which, I mean, I'm not complaining because President Snow is phenomenal in the movies, but I felt like they sort of took some of the limelight off of her. So, which I guess makes sense because they don't really want you to know she's like a villain, but I felt like they took away a little bit of her limelight.
Okay, okay. Um, so the next question that I have is, especially considering the fact, I mean, I think we sort of answered this question, but the overall execution of the films compared to the books, I mean, you know, you see what you read in the book, and I know that you both said that at certain points the book could be a little bit confusing because of how different it is compared to its first two in the saga. So, your thoughts on the overall execution, was it good, bad, or indifferent?
Yeah, I mean, there were certain scenes that had more impact in the movie because, visually speaking, you're seeing this brutality, or you're seeing, how spectacular the Capitol is in reference, like juxtaposed against how desolate it is in 13 and things like that. So I mean, I thought that definitely lended something to the story that you can't exactly get in the book. But I mean, I think they both have their strong points.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. Though the second Mockingjay movie is some of the things felt a little more ridiculous when you see them on scene or on screen, such as when Katniss and Gale are going to try and get to the Capitol by sneaking in, or get into President Snow's house by sneaking in with everyone, and they just put on these like hoods and they are just like walking, and I'm like, this is so stupid. What are they doing? So I think that scene for me was a lot more just, I don't know, it made me feel a lot more emotions in the book as opposed to the movie. Because
Yeah.
seeing that on screen, I was like, this looks really stupid, and this is literally the worst idea ever. But in the book, it sort of made sense because they were in a rush. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. That one does seem a little more realistic in the books, because in the movies it's
Yeah.
like, well, they look like they stick out like sore thumbs.
Yeah, they're like, put these
How would
things on, and no
this
one
work?
Okay, so then we've got, of course, a couple of new places, like the District 13 and the Nut, as well as the battle in the old subway systems. Do you feel that it was portrayed correctly, or did the books get it right the first time? Because, it's, again, I really shouldn't be jumping in on this, but maybe this will just put a little bit more fuel to the fire, and that is the last book is much more visual. And I just felt that when you see it, it just makes more sense. So, am I wrong in that respect?
I think District 13 made a lot more sense in the movies, but I actually think for me the battle in the subway made more sense for me in the book, because in the film it sort of all looked like the same subway, and I felt like, and in the book she mentions she sees a difference here or there, or she knows they hit the same spot because she recognizes. So I think the movies definitely win for District 13. I think they were visually perfect, but I think for the subway battle, for me personally, the books won.
Yeah. I thought with District 13, I think one of the things that I remember thinking with the movies was that it felt a lot more open than what I imagined an underground settlement would be. Like, I imagined it being more compartmentalized, I think, than it was, because there's that big open area that's with the stairwells and everything. I imagined that being a lot more closed off and dark than it was. So I thought that District 13, probably for me, I had a different visualization in the book. With the subway, I mean, I don't actually remember a lot about the subway battle, to be honest.
Okay. I don't know. Okay, so we'll just stop there. So then let's get to what I think is something that is very important to talk about. character deaths, specifically two.
Yeah, Finnick ripped my heart out.
We're talking about the death of Finnick, and we're also talking about the death of Prim.
Yeah, with Finnick, like that, I mean, it was the movie won hands down on that.
Oh, that was
It was so dramatic, and it just like because you can see his facial expression, you can see how like hesitant she is to actually like say Nightlock and throw the thing down there and blow it up, but like you can see the turmoil and the pain, but also like the lead into it. So where they're running through, I guess the sewer system, and there's the mutts and everything, and the whole time I'm just sitting there thinking like, I know what's coming next. I know what's coming next.
Yeah.
Can it just happen already? Because I know how painful this is going to be. And so they did a really fantastic job to like building the suspense to it, and then his actual death was just like seriously ripped my heart out.
Oh, it was so sad. And he was like so kick butt before that too. Like he got like a 2-minute fight scene.
Yeah.
Which was, I was like, yes, we get to see how hard it is to kill Finnick, because he is like described as one of the best people to ever go through the Hunger Games, and I think they did a good job of showcasing that.
Yeah.
I think Prim's death was horribly done in both, but I actually think I actually cried when I read it in the book, and in the movie I was like, oh, bye, Prim, because we didn't get to see as much of her, and she wasn't as prevalent. I was like, oh, yep, she's dead. I knew it was coming,
Right.
and I wasn't even actually sad.
Yeah. And I think I said this to you guys before. For me, Prim's death, in the books, I sobbed like a baby. Like, it upset me. It made me sad. In the movies, there were two things about it that irked me. One, Katniss was way too close to the scene, because in the books, she's like on a tower or something. She's not down in the mix of it close enough to be able to, like, reach out to where she was, which in the movie she is, which I thought was a weird decision. But then the other thing that they did...
She didn't get blown up there?
Yeah. And the other thing that they did that it made Prim's death not as dramatic or important to the storyline is that they kind of used it to further the divide between Katniss and Gale, because they make it sound like, because in the beginning of in the first movie, you hear Gale saying, if it was me, then I would let them send in their nurses to help their wounded, and then I'd drop bombs on them then. And so they make it look like that was Gale's idea, whereas that is not in the book at all. It is definitely, it's not his idea in any way. And then so they make it out to be kind of a plot point to drive a wedge between Gale and Katniss, because then later when he comes to see her, she basically alludes to it being his fault that Prim's dead, which is not the way that it's done in the book. In the book, it's obvious that it was President Coin doing it to try to convince her that the Capitol did it to her sister and that she should turn on the Capitol. And so it was like they basically took the meaning behind Prim's death and completely changed it.
Yeah, and that's another thing with taking away stuff from President Coin, because President Coin, while she's not as evil in the book or in the movie, because they don't showcase as much of her like evil stuff she does, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, well, guys, I gotta tell you that we're coming up to the last question, and we're tied. So this is a make or break right here. So let's
no pressure.
No pressure. So let's make it a good one, and I know it's going to be a good one because we've already touched on it. Let's talk about the ending, both book and film. Should it have gone in a different way, and why?
Well, I think this question is twofold, though, because the ending, as far as the part where she makes the decision to say, yes, I think we should put the Capitol's kids in a final Hunger Games battle just so that she can get up there and kill President Coin. Like, in the movie, the way that they staged that and the whole her shooting her and how dramatic it was so, to me, much more powerful than in the book. Because I remember, like, basically she's on a balcony with her or something in the book, so it seems very kind of haphazard, whereas in the movie it's clear that Katniss had a plan going into that meeting, and I thought that was a lot more powerful. Obviously, the epilogue, I just wish in both book and movie that was just trash, because Katniss was so mentally destroyed that there is no way she would have been able to be in any sort of healthy relationship, and definitely not in any place to raise children.
With PETA, who was also insane.
Right?
At this
Those
point.
poor freaking kids. They got no chance.
I think the one thing, I do think the way they staged the whole thing in the movie was really good, but the one thing that really irked me is in the book they make it the Nightlock pill. She's gonna kill herself after she shoots President Coin, and that is like very, very slightly referenced in the movie, and I felt like that was a really big part of it for me, because it was like, oh my gosh, she's at such a dark point. She just wants to basically die, but she doesn't want to leave the world with a horrible leader, so she's going to take Coin down with her. And PETA stops her, which sort of, for me, PETA stopping her is the only showcases why she would pick PETA over Gale. And in the movie, like, you see her grab something, but you don't really know what it is. I only knew what it was because I had read the book. It looks like she's, like, picking dust off her shirt or something, but she grabs a pill, and then PETA stops her, and they drag her off.
Oh. Okay. And in regards to the epilogue, you guys obviously don't like it at all, but I don't know. I mean, again, I can't jump into this. This is not my fight. So, I mean, it seems to me that you both feel that the epilogue should have just been thrown out altogether.
Yes.
Yes, definitely. So I actually like the book epilogue more simply because I find the fact that Katniss, they sort of portray that Katniss has been telling the Hunger Games story to her newborn child. I find that so creepy. It just solidifies the fact that this woman she would have never been in any place to get married and have kids. I don't think, it just sort of really made me uncomfortable. And the epilogue, while it annoyed me in the book, it didn't make me uncomfortable like that scene did in the movie. It felt very creepy to me, honestly.
Yeah, in the book, they put a lot more of the focus on the fact that, like, you are supposed to understand these two people are so screwed up, and that, like, they're each other's support system, because of the whole thing where the real or not real thing. They don't really, like, they barely touch on that in the movie, and, like, that was a big part of their relationship, is that, like, she understood what he was going through, and she was able to say, like, that's not real, like, that's in your mind.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to say that the decision has been made, so now I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the ending. When I read the book, I wanted to throw it across the room, because I could not stand how that book ended. I hated it so much, and it was such a letdown from such a powerful saga in books. I really loved those books, but when I got to Mockingjay, I hated the book. I hated it so much, and I couldn't stand that ending. But I'll tell you guys the honest truth. I liked the way it ended in the film. And the reason why is because it gave you a little bit more of a glimmer of hope. Meaning that somewhere down the line, something's going to be, it's all going to turn out okay. Things will get better. And I feel that, especially in a world that we're currently living in now, where there's terrible things happening almost every single day, unfortunately, there are still some of those people that are going to say, you know, something, today is today, tomorrow is another day, eventually something is going to give and things will get better. And I just feel that the way that she talks to her child and tells her what she says in the films, she does it with a little bit of a glimmer of hope. But my decision doesn't matter, and basically what you guys said is don't judge a book by its movie. The book wins! Yes! The book wins over the films, which means the films are going to have to wait till the next episode of Versus that features books versus films, because the books are now sitting pretty at a battle at a total score of 3-0 since Versus has begun. So I know that there were some other questions that were being asked, but unfortunately there was no plan to do so. But I do feel that there was one question that we can throw out because we do have a little extra time before book battles. So that question is, in terms of sort of like the Hogwarts sorting, we were talking, it was also Hannah from Bookworm who also asked the question. It was in regards to Divergent. What class would you put all three of them in?
I never read Divergent, so I don't even know what that even means. So.
I would put, oh, this is hard. Katniss is dauntless, definitely. Peeta, I would put Peeta in with Candor. I think I would put him in Candor because he's not like, he's really nice and stuff, but he also sort of says things how they are, and he's smart, like the Candor. So he's not just like helplessly joyful like those one people, and he doesn't just like feed poor people all the time like those other people. I can't remember their names. But so I would put him in Candor. And then Gale, I don't know. Gale's kind of dauntless too, I think.
You don't think that Katniss is factionless?
Well, yeah, she probably is, let's be real. But yeah, I think Katniss, she feels very dauntless to me.
Okay. Well, I mean, she is quite skilled, and very athletic, so I would totally agree with Dauntless there. And I will just say,
I don't think she...
You don't think she what?
I don't think she is... I don't think she tells the truth enough, or is nice enough, or any of those other qualities from the other houses, or not houses, but from the other sections to be divergent.
Okay, well, I don't know if I've seen the first two Divergent movies, and I am, you probably have seen my reviews on them, so on my channel.
Hilarious.
So yeah, I was not satisfied with the last one that I watched, but I am going to see this one till the end because let's face it, I sat through 5 Twilight movies. I can sit through 4 Divergent series movies. I'm pretty certain that I can. But ladies, we are done. This battle is done. And this was definitely an intense one. I actually had a ton of fun. We definitely cracked some awesome jokes in between. I loved the questions. We got so much participation. And the good news is we have 19 minutes before book battles begins over at Kale's Corner. So I know that the two of you are going to watch. And I'm actually kind of excited to leave the video feed on so we can all play together. I think that that's going to be a lot of fun until one of us has to go. But that's the show, everybody. Thank you very much for everyone that commented, that asked questions. It was a pleasure to have every single one of you. And I just wanted to, oh God, I have to correct somebody over here because Tracy over at Tracy's Basement said, oh my God, Steve, you watched all 4 Twilight movies. 5 Twilight movies, Tracy. Unfortunately, 5. Although you should totally watch my April Fool's special, which basically has me just bashing the hell out of those movies. Anyway, before we go, I want everyone who is watching or everyone that will watch in the coming days know that who you are and where they can find you. So the victor, which is Melissa, will go first. Melissa, where can these wonderful people in the YouTube world find you?
Over at The Bookish Babbler. That's what my channel's called. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. And Jenny, where can everyone find you?
Okay, my channel is just my name, Jenny King, so you can find me over there.
Okay, and let me just personally say that I've been watching these two for quite a while now. I've actually been following Jenny for a little over a year, or maybe just about a year, and Melissa I found a little bit later on. But what I like about these two is the fact that one of them is still very new to BookTube to a certain degree, and one of them has been around for a while. And one of the few things that I do like about both of them is how diverse they are in terms of their presentation, in terms of the books and other things that they talk about, because Jenny just did a whole thing about mugs and her mug collection, and Melissa was kind enough to do my May the Force Be With You tag, which was really, really cool. I was really glad that they both are just very different people, and I feel that when you bring two different personalities together in one room, there's definitely going to be some true magic that happens, and everybody from every different background is relevant. So I want to thank everybody once again for watching. Of course, this will be redone and revamped with a proper intro and outro. I will then be sending the link for this video. I'll be sending the video over to these two wonderful ladies so they can post on their channels. So I want to thank you both so much for participating today. It was tons of fun, and I'll see everybody in the next episode of Versus, whenever that may be. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy book battles over at Kale's Corner, and actions speak louder than words.